Greetings everyone, I welcome you on my channel Divine Destiny of Souls, and this is episode 12. In this first series of episodes I'm describing the story of my shamanic awakening in truthful detail. So I'll continue the story of my connection with Nataly. Once we completed our ritual, and there was another interesting element during our conversation with Christina before the ritual, is that she kind of understood that I have these clairvoyant spiritual talents, and she was like, I have this strange thing is that my left shoulder, right around here, just kind of like feels itchy, and I kind of like keep bringing attention to it, and I don't understand what it is because there's nothing physical going on, but I kind of like it's always appears in my space lately for the last couple of weeks. And she was like, well, maybe you can sort of check it out what it is, and she kind of like said it jokingly, of course, and I think she didn't think that I would sort of do that. But once I completed the ritual and came back home, I had this like interesting understanding that there is some kind of like a spiritual deity or being that's kind of tries to harm her. And it was just intuitive feeling after whatever she described and how she reacted to the vase. So on the next day I went into my trance state, and I could see, I saw that the returning of that sort of phantom pain was actually from our first life together, and so once I died on the battlefield in that life, the army took control of the city, and what they did is that they started to brand women who were living there. Was kind of like just this metallic thing, basically putting a brand on the shoulder of every woman there, almost like claiming that they own them or something like that, and it was sort of a punishment as well. And so that phantom pain sort of returned because we kind of opened up that past life and tried to heal that, and of course that sort of manifested in this strange way on her physically. And so on that same evening I realized also that there is the same thing that happened with Polly, is that there is an evil spirit who's been chasing Nataly over the course of a series of lives. And he didn't curse her. It wasn't that complicated as it was with Polly, and that being became sort of immortal only a century ago. So he was Nataly's soulmate, and they kept meeting life after life. Basically, after we had our 3 lives together, she went on her own journey, and that's how they met. They were destined karmic soulmates who supposed to sort of empower each other by challenging each other. But he was often destructive and possessive of her. And eventually we discovered that in the last 2 lives, he was so possessive of her that when she tried to leave him, he just killed her. And sort of in the last life, he decided to become this immortal spirit because he wanted to own her and possess her the same way as Damian did. So I realized all of that, and I kind of like, okay, I know what to do, and I know how to not only clear her past life karma that would sort of open up her spiritual talents more and allow her to step into another space of her business, just ascend where she wanted to be, but also that this being would be sort of harming her in one way or the other. And basically what happened is that he was responsible for that car crash and for those 2 people who attacked Christina, and that's basically how these evil spirits work. They use any vessel that they can as close to the person as possible to kind of like bring them harm, and he was actually just trying to bring attention that he's in pain and he also exists, and he doesn't like that state, that he doesn't want to be physically present because he can't incarnate and he can't possess her. And so he couldn't kill her as Damian might kill Jessica, but he could harm her, and that was something that was clear to us. So on that evening, I emailed to Christina and basically said, I'm thankful for that ritual. I described any sort of like spiritual blessings that I received from that, and basically sending words of appreciation that she welcomed me with my essence and all of that. And then I basically told her that I know what's creating these spiritual roadblocks on your path, and I know who's attacking you spiritually, so I can sort of try to clear that. And I told her that you don't need to do anything, and you don't need to meet me, and we don't need to discuss it. I will just do it if you sort of agree to that, and I'll just do that work if you agree to that. And if you would sort of want to know more, or if you want to sort of have another element of integration, then I can sort of share what I know. And I kind of like, of course, wrote to her that I understand that it might sound weird, but this is just something that I do, and I'm trying to be honest here as much as I can, and it's just my expression of sort of gratitude for everything that you've done. And so I didn't actually expect any sort of response from her, like thinking that, she might be just scared of that. But around a week later, she wrote back and basically saying, I'm curious to know more about your spiritual work and whatever you're doing. Maybe we can go for a walk in Lighthouse Park one day, and you can share that with me. And I was kind of like very surprised by that offer. I was glad that she kind of like responded in this way, and I thought of like maybe this would be an opportunity to become her friends or something like that. I didn't expect anything like romantic. I was just wanting to continue a connection basically in one form or another, and I didn't want to be her client. I just didn't feel comfortable at that point. Because of like the complexity of our connection and just like this past lives that we shared together. So I responded to her saying, like any time when you'll feel cold, just reach me out and we can definitely go for a walk. That would be great. And so basically for me, that was she providing consent to do this work. So I connected with my guides, and I connected with Nataly and Goddess Isis, and it was presented to us that she has 8 past lives that needs to be cleared. That happened sort of like 3 lives that we have together, and then 5 lives that she experienced with Nathaniael. And we need to do death journeys for each of these lives to clear them out. And of course, I had my regressions as well that I did at that time. Trying to understand how I connected to her and like what I need to heal for myself as well and for Polly. And it was interesting that at the usually, say for example with Polly, I did every session, every death journey around like every 3-4 months, and that's how sort of she and our guides told us to do it. I think it was sort of taken in account of kind of like how that would be integrated on the other side, right? And here it was presented with me with this thing is that I need to do these 8 journeys and to clear her demons that they chase her in the course of I think 3 weeks. So I basically did a death journey every 3 days, which I never did before, and I basically that was sort of another level of initiation into a series Isis energies to kind of like speed up that work and do it in this form. And it was told to me that the reason for that is that she she basically had like a threshold in her journey, and that there's going to be some very important decisions that she needs to make in December, to kind of like what direction to take in life, and to kind of like empower her and to provide her with the sort of like provide her with the opportunity to do that in the most empowering way. It needs to be clear right now so the integration can also happen, and that we can also sort of digest that with Nataly and try to integrate that on her level as well, until she would bring that back to Christina. So we proceeded with that, and we kind of like just started to do these death journeys in this form, and it was like really sort of intense initiation into my practice, because it was completely transformed through these 8 journeys that we did with Nataly. We needed first to process our 3rd life that we had with Nataly, and that's how we started this process. And sort of in this 3rd life that we lived together, I lived as a woman Astarte, and so Astarte was of course living in these energies of Osiris, so she was like very peculiar and unique woman who's like who's was sort of a rebel, but she was like quite a badass and very powerful woman. Her parents and grandparents died when she was by the age of 17, so she ended up living alone in the house that they left her, and she didn't know what to do, and kind of like she had some money, but it was still she was still considering what to do with her life, to kind of like how to provide for herself. And then just one thing after another, she discovered that she's really empowered if she would do sex work, and that's how she sort of started her adult journey. She began providing services for clients in her place, and kind of soon enough many villagers around her kind of like knew what she was doing, but she never cared about it, and she felt empowered through that work, and she liked her pleasures, and she liked the way that she interacted with men, and she liked how sort of desired she was, and of course she also was glad that she doesn't need to think about money at all. And once she began this journey, this spiritual path, she kind of like realized that this is who she is, this is how she was born, and there's like no shame or judgment can be, because that's how she feels in her heart. And her clients were happy after her sessions, and she also just felt that this is something that she needs to do, that there was no question for her, that this is what was sort of commanded to her by her heart. But she also communicated with spirits of nature, and it was also sort of related to her that she's on the right path. And a few years later, she also started to volunteer at the cemetery, because what was the most interesting about Astarte is that when both her parents and grandparents died, she spent some time with their dead bodies and basically like talking to their souls, and she really liked seeing dead bodies and corpses, and it was a very unusual experience for her, but that was something that she craved for, similar as she was craving for sexual pleasures. And so because she didn't know what kind of like how to address that, she decided to go to cemetery and ask if they have any jobs. And so basically she would welcome her clients during the day or in the evening, and then she would spend some nights working for free, basically, or like for small pay at the cemetery, preparing the corpses for the burial, and she would talk to their souls and try to kind of understand if they have any things that they need to finish in this life, or that they need any kind of like guidance, or just sort of almost like being a counselor for them, right? and she really enjoyed that part of her essence, and she really enjoyed this work. And of course, she became the most strange and weirdest woman in her town. But again, she didn't care. And at a certain point, she, like after 6 years of doing sex work, she received the guidance from nature that she needs to end this career, and there's something else waiting for her in the future. And this is another archetype of sex workers. There's basically two archetypes, almost like two sides of one coin. One is a sexual priestess, and I told you the story of Cassandra. And sexual priestesses, they usually have a lifelong dedication to this craft, and they can be teachers, and they can be sort of these guides of sexual healing. But sacred prostitutes, they have a limited time span in this profession because they possess more masculine darkness, and they design differently from sexual priestesses, like on the emotional, physical, and spiritual levels. And sacred prostitutes always have sort of like two purposes in life, and sex work is usually can be in the beginning. It can also be, of course, later, but usually it's their first profession, and through that they kind of like gain understanding of people, gain spiritual knowledge, and by serving nature in this way, nature rewards them with spiritual talents. So they would be more empowered in their second profession, which is also like their destined profession in life that their soul chose. And so Astarte kind of like denied that guidance because she's like, I don't know what else I would do, and I just enjoy everything about this. And she was just kind of settled in it as if it's a routine. And she also was thinking about how she can provide for herself. So she kind of like rejected that guidance. And so, and one of the evenings after that, one of the clients came to her and like they got into argument, and he punched her in the stomach. And he kind of like was scared that he responded with that anger, and he also felt ashamed. So he just ran away and never returned. But when Astarte was lying on the ground, she was like, oh, I kind of like deserved that because I kept sort of denying myself the truth that I'm hearing from nature. And so she still kind of took some time off and didn't know what to do. So she went to the temple of spiritual guidance. And when she went there, she received some guidance that she couldn't understand at all. She was told that she would find a profession in another city, and she would own the house, and she would become oracle high priestess. All of that didn't make sense to Astarte. She didn't want to leave her town. She didn't want to move from her house, and she was also like, I'm not an oracle. So it's all kind of like bullshit. So she just spent some time resting, but then she returned to that profession to do sex work. And she did it for a few months, and then another messenger from nature came, and it was this very, very intense and painful experience. Basically, when they proceeded to the bedroom, this man completely changed, and she could see that his eyes changed, and she could see that he was demonically possessed. When he started to sort of make his movements, when they started to have sex, he just switched into a completely different being, and she just recognized that, and she started to feel that she's being raped rather than just sort of providing the service. It was very intense, and he started to strangle her at that moment. And when it started to happen, she was like, okay, he came basically to kill me. And at that certain moment, she almost surrendered. She was like, I can't escape him. He was basically holding her all around, and she didn't know what to do. And she's kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna sort of, this is the end of my life sort of thing. But then at a certain moment, her natural reflexes kicked in, and she basically was able to trap him with her vagina, and he couldn't move at all, and he started to feel pain in his member, and he started screaming, and she was able to like roll him around and got a vase and started to hit him on the head. And at a certain moment, she raised it to basically kill him, and she sort of said, I give you a chance to leave right now. Otherwise, I will kill her. I will kill you." And that demonic being almost disappeared, and this man kind of like returned back to senses, and he couldn't understand what was happening to him. So he basically, bleeding, he just retreated and escaped the house. Ran away, never returned. And so Astarte was like, okay, this is definitely the highest, another confirmation from nature that I need to finish this work. So she still didn't know what to do, but she started to sort of like think what may happen. And soon enough, the army of it was happening in the later years of ancient Egypt, and so the army of Europeans, the Christians, came and sort of pillaged and looted this house, this entire town. They kind of like burned it to the ground, and Astarte and other people from the city tried to hide in this like underground places and underground chambers and tunnels. And once they thought that they were safe, they kind of returned to the surface, but this man army was still there. So while she was sort of going back home, she was repeatedly raped a few times by different men. Her house was partially burned when she was able to get to that, but she had this like a safe underneath her bed, where she like underneath the floor, where she hid her money, and which she found it to be safe. And so she was glad that she had these resources. So she packed what she could, and she sort of decided, okay, if I was told that I need to go to some other place and there's no place to live here, I would just allow the nature and allow the spirits to guide me, and allow my sort of almost my body to my soul to guide me. And she just embarked on this journey of like basically walking. And she, at a certain point, she ended up around Luxor area. And that area was still kind of safe. And when she arrived at that place, she saw this like flourishing community, and it was filled with light and just very empowering. Her town was always felt like a very dark place, and the corruption of her citizens was evident to her because she was seeing so many men and so many corpses. So when Astarte got to that new town, she was like, okay, I can see myself living here. It seems like a nice community, but she still didn't know what else, how she could sort of settle it here, or where she would live, or what she would do. And then when she sort of entered that town, she saw this temple of spiritual guidance, and she was like, okay, yeah, I didn't have the luck before, but maybe this right now, since I was guided to be here, maybe they will provide me some guidance. And when she came to High Priestess, who was in charge of that temple, the weirdest thing happened, because this woman recognized Astarte, and she's like, I've been waiting for you for some years. Astarte was completely shocked by that, and she was like, what do you mean? How do you know? And this High Priestess basically said, it was related to me by the spirits and by my spiritual guides, that you would come one day here, and I will train you in this craft, and then you would be in charge of this temple. You would become the High Oracle Priestess instead of me. So you would inherit this temple once I will die. Astarte was like completely shocked and surprised by that, because it was sort of so unexpected and so kind of like out there. And she also didn't believe that she has the power to be this High Oracle Priestess, kind of like doubting herself. But at the same time, it was clear that it was kind of like a spiritual reward for all the work that she did for the higher beings, right? Like for servicing nature through sex work and through servicing nature in the cemetery. She was just giving herself honestly. She didn't really have any predatory intentions ever. She felt empowered through this work. She felt connected to this craft, and that her heart always like asked her to be as honest to herself as possible. And this was how nature sort of paid her back in this way. And so Astarte was given a room in this temple. She had a place to live, and then she started to get trainings with this high oracle priestess in this craft of spiritual clairvoyance and guidance. They basically like did palm readings, tarot readings, like sort of tarot readings, like divination cards, and just channeling the guidance to people who like came seeking it. And then after some time, this high oracle priestess, she was like, okay, we have also, I just wanted to show you something, and she sort of brought her downstairs into the basement, and down there there was this sealed chamber where there was like a sarcophagus standing in the middle of it, and that sarcophagus was used for death journeys, and that was the practice that was known in ancient Egypt to heal past life burdens of souls and just provide any kind of like guidance or rewrite the contracts, everything basically what I'm doing through this practice right now. And the high priestess was like, I'm just showing you this, and I'll explain to you what it is, but she didn't believe that Astarte has sort of the talent to do this. But once she received some sort of basic understanding of the guidance, and she did her first few journeys, she was like, I really love doing this. I really enjoy this, exactly like I was, and it was kind of like natural to her to find empowerment in the art of resurrection. And at a certain point, she was like, I'm so tired of people, of men, they're so abusive and all of that. I like spending time in death more than amongst the living. And there were like periods of training where she just by herself decided that she would sort of spend as much time in death realm as possible. She would be like doing that any single moment that she had, and she could spend like very prolonged periods of time, which I rarely do, partially because I don't have sarcophagus as well, but at the same time it's like also she was living in the energies of Osiris, right? So it was much easier for her to do that. So eventually she inherited this temple and she became this high priestess. So she started to do these death journeys. She was doing also burial death rituals for rich people of this town. Many kind of like important people only wanted to do that with her. So she became well known in that place. And sometime after, this woman came visiting the temple for spiritual guidance, and it was Nataly, and both women kind of like felt this connection. They saw each other's souls, and so Astarte quickly connected to her guides and basically understood that they're soulmates from two past lives, and they both kind of understood that. And she offered Nataly the guidance that I believe that your purpose is here with me, and that we will be sort of both priestesses here, and you can provide the same healing. And Nataly, by that time, she was doing sort of like similar work that Christina does right now, is that she was providing sexual healing arts. She was trained with that in that. So, but this temple didn't offer these services, and so she was kind of like sometimes offered them, but it was mainly once Astarte showed her the chamber for death journeys, and Nataly tried it for the first time. She was like, oh, I really like that as well, because she was natural Isis, right? Isis of death. And so she was equally eager to explore it and to understand this practice and to kind of like become this practitioner in this art. And so two women basically, like, she received the room there and started to live there, and two women basically became this, like, not only best friends, but these companions who kind of like spent many days just debating death journeys and trying to understand them. And what interesting happened is that Nataly became sort of even more masterful in this art form than Astarte, and both women kind of like help each other to understand how this practice works. And then eventually they became lovers as well, and they they spent next 20 years, around 20 years living together in this temple, doing this work. But one day this man came over to seek spiritual guidance, and Nataly recognized him as one of her soulmates as well, and she was told that she needs to marry this man and raise his children from another woman that he had. He was a widower, and this is what she basically told Astarte, that I need to sort of retire and pursue the family with this man. And she left this temple. Astarte felt almost like betrayed, rejected, and all of these things. Grieved a lot, and she felt that their love wasn't fully explored. But because partially it happened because Astarte had a lot of reservations after her traumatic experiences in youth, and sort of partially she became bitter that she became alone and almost betrayed and left on her own. And then eventually warriors arrived to that town as well, and they slaughtered Astarte with the sword and basically cut her into pieces again. And this time Nataly could bury her, could bury me, and she collected the pieces and but she was so devastated by that experience. She was completely heartbroken because in first two lives she at least haven't seen my body, but this time it was very real. And she also acknowledged that she didn't fully surrender to that love to the extent that she wanted, because there was a lot of unresolved love expressed in that grief. And it was almost like she made this decision of Nataly made this decision in this life that I can't encounter you anymore because you bring so much pain to me. I have to bury you all the time, and it's just too unbearable for me, and that's why we haven't met up until this life. So when we started to do the journeys for Nataly, that we discovered that information, and quite soon it became evident that Nataly is sort of as equally skilled in death journey as me. And what was also interesting that before that it took me 20-30 minutes to get into death realm, just in the beginning of the session when I would start a session. But Nataly showed me a pathway how to descend into death in a matter of seconds. It was incredibly surprising to discover that revelation, almost like a find a tunnel, an intention how to sort of do that empoweringly. And that became just a breakthrough in our sessions. And she also, as an Isis, natural Isis soul, she could navigate between the planes of death in a completely different way that I could. And we started to explore lower planes of death. And I never felt comfortable in that. To this day, I'm I feel comfortable working on the first and second level. But Nataly is comfortable working up to the 6th level, which is purgatory, and eventually, and Polly was always comfortable with working up to 4th and 5th levels. Just these levels have progressively more demons and more darkness. Depends on how much a person betrayed themselves or lied to themselves or to others, and eventually Polly was able to master purgatory as well. That was part of her education. But yeah, it was incredible to see how fast Nataly was moving through these planes, and how many things that she could encounter, discover in these planes, and show to me. So once we recognized the talents of Nataly in doing death journeys, we were able to embody all these talents into her and to me, and just my practice completely changed from that moment on. So it was basically not only that I was providing healing for Nataly, she was paying me back with a deeper understanding of this practice, and it was sort of another level of initiations in my craft into mastering that practice. And it was incredibly fulfilling, inspiring, and just wonderful journey, because it was this kind of like expression of love in this incredible way, where we became these colleagues who just challenge each other in the most magical ways, and kind of like they elevated the practice. And after we cleared Nataly's 8 lives, she also, because she was connected to Isis energies, she also showed me the places in Death Realm that I wasn't aware about. Like, for example, she showed me the back garden of the Isis temple, and this place in between the worlds is almost like a death within death, where souls can access the healing light of the Tree of Life, and where they sort of present themselves not as these ethereal beings almost shaped as humans, but it was almost like they would be like a cloud made out of stars, like still in the form of a human being, but not with the physical features. And that's where the most unique and advanced healing can happen. And I would never be able to sort of access that place without guidance of Nataly, and without the initiation that we have with Goddess Isis herself during that period of time. So we completed that work, and we kind of like closed it off, and we did ceremonies in the Lighthouse Park as well. We did some drumming ceremonies and breath work as well with Nataly. She kind of like she guided me to discover the practices of breath work, and she wanted to do them. And it was this kind of like element of transformation, of changing her essence from these past issues and these past veils into her most magical, empowering version. And sort of I think she left around November. That's when we completed this work, and by that time this woman never responded to, like Christina never responded to me with going to this walk in the park. And around a month after she offered it, I didn't know if she like received my email or something like that, so I kind of like texted her in this kind of friendly and joking manner, saying I was in the Lighthouse Park, and I sort of saw your spiritual friends, referring to animals, and that they sort of miss you, and I would like to go for a walk. And she never responded to that text, because I thought that like, oh, it's just a professional number, so maybe she just like doesn't respond to that. So I just was completely confused. I didn't know what to do, because it was kind of, I didn't really care about that walk, but she offered it. She kind of like presented this engagement between us that was more personal than professional. So I just didn't know how to navigate it, or what should I do. And it was just annoying and like really frustrating to wait every single day for a response from her, and she never provided it. That's why I texted. That's why I kind of like wanted to sort of clear the air, because she was the one who opened that door, so she was the one who's supposed to provide closure. And it was just completely infuriating at a certain point after like a couple of months. But I'm kind of like, whatever, I can let it go. But I still have these like deep romantic feelings to Nataly because of the work that we did. And I had these like different dreams of our dates almost with Christina. But it was interesting that the most beautiful dreams that I had was this one dream that kept reoccurring, is that we are sitting in her temple space around the midnight, and I just like basically she finished her work, and I came also like after finishing my work, and we're meeting to have the tea overnight, and we're speaking, and we stay talking to each other up until the sunset, up until the morning. And it was this dream that kept sort of coming back into my space, and there was no intimacy, there was no romance, there was just like two friends basically talking to each other. And I thought that like maybe this dream sort of refers to the fact that, oh, we kind of like should be colleagues, or should be sort of just friends or acquaintances, or kind of like have sometimes spending time together. But I was also having quite a lot of romantic and intimate visions as well. There was another element of healing where we tried to understand the complexity of Nataly's womb space. It was kind of, I would say, shattered, broken because of the past abuses. And basically, it was sort of presented to us that Nathaniel kind of almost locked her womb space to prevent her empowerment. So we discovered these lives where Nataly was with Nathaniel, and two most important lives that I would like to share. She was living in his mansion, and she understood that he kind of like killed his previous women who lived there. So she tried to run away, and when she did, he kind of like he killed her by drowning in the lake. And in the previous life, the last life that they shared, it was in Chicago around Prohibition era, so like 1920s, 1930s, and she was killed like late 1930s by Nathaniel because she kind of like worked for him, providing sexual services and sort of manipulating competitors. But at a certain moment, he became very jealous, and sort of in this last interaction that they had, he got angry with her, so he raped her, and then he shot her in the back of her head. And after that, he was completely devastated, and he couldn't sort of continue his life without her because he had so much love for her. So that's why he became this immortal spirit who decided to sort of like become her or chase her. And so by that November, by the end of November, we were able to seal him and kind of integrate the best parts, like the most empowering parts, the courage, and the also different spiritual sort of masculine elements that he's supposed to provide to her, but remove the fear and remove this pain and seal him so he would not continue to use other people to hunt her or to provide her pain. It was quite easy to work with Nathaniel comparing to Damian, because Damian was he specifically chose this path, and he wanted to be malicious, and he wanted to provide as much fear as possible to me and Polly, and he wanted to be our nemesis. That was something that he enjoyed doing. But Nathaniel was actually confused by his experience, and in most of our interaction, he was actually kind of like begging to be released and begging to be let go, and he was much more sort of receptive, I would say, just providing the guidance that we needed, and kind of like just wanted for us to finish this work as soon as possible. And once we integrated him, she was released, and Nataly could go back to her body. We also closed off Nataly's healings in ceremonies on the same place that, like around West Vancouver, on the other side of the Lions Gate Bridge, roughly in the place that where women were hiding from that life, where we were living on that land. And we also had very, very empowering connections to the spirits of the Lighthouse Park. And these were quite important ceremonies for both of us, and I gained more understanding and knowledge about my essence and what I can do for souls and how I work. All of that, it was just very profound, kind of like training, like mastering of my essence. And I couldn't do that without Nataly, for sure. She was just this incredible force. Like, Magdalene women, they do cry a lot, they dance a lot, they spend time in these like subtle energies and gentle energies, whether for Nataly it was like, okay, we need to do this and this and this, and just this kind of like a completely different energy, right? Like completely unique Isis woman. And I was also like integrating a series and like perceiving him through my body, and he was kind of like coming into my space and almost like existing through my body, so I can understand how it feels to be him and like what I can take from him and what talents he can sort of provide to me. Osiris, to be honest, he was like completely angry with being brought back into physical realm. He doesn't like to be here. He likes to be in death. And he said also that I can't stand your town, meaning Vancouver. He was like, this is such an ugly place and I don't understand your timeline, how you can live like that. He was, of course, comparing to the ancient Egypt, and of course it was sort of how I would say it in the most polite way. But yeah, it's not an empowering or healthy society for sure. And it's also quite ugly in terms for the eyes, in terms of architecture and things like that, right? Like just the way that towns are designed in North America. And so he kind of like was constantly annoyed by that and kept telling me that. And I kind of could hear his pain, but at the same time, like, what can you do, right? This is the timeline that we're living in. But he was kind of like confused. He was also confused by all the news and everything that was happening as well. He was kind of like, this is just incredibly ridiculous place that you live in and incredibly strange times. But we completed our initiations, and so Nataly was like, okay, I can return back. But no matter how she tried, she kind of like, she couldn't, you know, like she spent some time away from me. And then in early December, she's kind of like, I can't fully go back into Christina for some reason. I don't know what to do. There seems to be something else that we need to finish, or like I understand or something like that, or some ceremonies that we didn't do. And for me, it was also like in this way, it was, by that time, I was completely frustrated and annoyed that this woman never responded to me. And I was like, sort of just didn't like that there was no closure. I didn't like have this basically feeling that in the air, you know, that we never resolved our connection in any sort of way or never closed it. It was a very strange feeling, but I couldn't like shake it off. And it was also kind of like Nataly couldn't return, so it was very confusing to me. And towards the end of December, as it was sort of building up, and also Osiris was kind of like incredibly frustrated with Christina. He was like, if you brought me back to experience romance, and you are not allowing us to sort of experience it. So like, what the fuck, basically, right? And I could see that also because we were still chained with Polly, right? It was very kind of like confusing to have two souls in my space. Polly tried as much as she could to spend time away in Sechelt, but it was still kind of, in most days, if we didn't do like any sexual alchemy or anything like that, or death journeys with Nataly, we were like three of us always in one space. That was kind of like also providing a lot of stress for me. And just it was, of course, it was beautiful in its own way, magical in its own way, but it also was this kind of confusion, right? Like confusion and just misunderstandings. And it was kind of the way that we were always communicating with Nataly in our previous lives. It's just the way that we were. And it's also important to understand that this is how Osiris and Isis are designed to be, is that even though Osiris really loves his Isis, and Nataly was my destined Isis, right? Even though he loves her and he loves their sexual pleasures, and they have this like incredible chemistry and connection, he's still so annoyed by her essence that he prefers to live in death rather than stay alive and just be judge of death and do that work instead of like being with Isis, because she's so annoying and she's sort of irritating for him. And so this is what I was experiencing, and I kind of like, I fully didn't grasp that concept and fully didn't understand, because I was still kind of going through understanding the designs of souls, right? Like by that time I only knew about Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. Right now I was just trying to tap into understanding this dynamic. And even though there are plenty of legends about Isis and Osiris. It's still kind of until you have your own experience, right? And until you allow these gods to live through you in their own unique way, you still can't understand it or grasp it fully. And so I was living in this like confusion and misunderstandings, and I just wanted to have some form of a closure. That was basically where I was coming from, and I didn't know what to do. So I asked Mary Magdalene, like, what should I do? Because Nataly can't return, and I also want to experience some form of closure, even though I can sort of find it for myself. And so it was kind of agreed with Goddess Mary Magdalene that I should write an email to Christina and basically just confess my feelings in the way that I can, because I really wanted that, and I really wanted to tell this woman that I do have genuine feelings for her, even if she doesn't want to be with me or anything like that. I just wanted to share that I have love for her and I see her for who she is. And so I wrote this email basically saying that I have these romantic feelings towards you and I don't know what to do with them, and so I would like to invite you for a dinner date, and if you not feel anything, I would not like bother you again, but I would like to see us in real life, and mainly because I was trying to understand what I was feeling and whether my feelings were just rooted completely in past lives or whether there was some kind of like a short romance that we should experience, right? Like, so because I was both Paul and Nataly and myself as well, we kind of understood that it was still a journey where I'm walking towards being with Polly. So, but it was still kind of like as it was related to us a couple of years into the future. So I was kind of like confused and thinking that maybe for that period of time we could have some sort of a romantic relationship with Christina. I was just coming from my feelings of past lives, right? That what was the main thing that kind of like drove me, because later on I kind of fully understood that I was it was more inspiring to become her friend, sort of thing, right, or colleague, because I liked the way that we sort of talked about sexual alchemy and sexual healing arts, and that was something that we could both grow through that connection this way. But I basically wrote this email, and like I invited her for a dinner date, and I also wrote in that email the dreams that I was seeing, the dream that about the midnight tea and all of that, and just kind of it was very gentle and very kind of like just an email of hopeless romantic, right? With all these visions and dreams. And I didn't think much of it. I kind of like, well, the idea was also why I wasn't feeling comfortable, to be honest. I just like, I want to let go. I want to allow this woman her space. If she never came back to me, that this is how she wants it to be. So why bother her at all? And she ghosted me for 2 times, so I'm kind of like, this is just how it is, so what's the point? But Mary Magdalene was like, this email would not only allow you to express your feelings and to state your truth, which is an important part of your masculine growth, because any man knows how sometimes it's like so challenging to approach a woman that you sort of have feelings towards, and just claim them and just basically state them in the most empowering way and kind of like share them, at least even if it's not going to lead to anything. But Mary Magdalene also said that in this way, this email would break some of Christina's heart walls, and that would allow Nataly to return back. And Nataly was also like, there's something that we need to clear that I don't understand what it is, and sort of the idea was that if these heart walls would be sort of removed, if she would receive this sort of emotional shock of receiving this email, then her past frustrations, disappointments, and anger and regrets with men will come to the surface, and we will be able to clear them through shamanic ceremonies. That was sort of idea of Nataly. And a few days later, Christina responded to me. I think a couple of days later, she responded to me in the most hurtful way that it's possible. I was like completely devastated by her response. She responded in an aggressive manner, and she was starting to say that like that you don't know how to behave yourself, and that you don't understand who you are, and like why you're doing this, and it's just all the clients sort of experience connection with me, so like just sort of fuck off and never write to me again. It was quite a strange situation because I never wanted anything from her, and it was a sort of quite innocent email, in my opinion, what I wrote to her, and she could have responded in many different ways. She could have said that she doesn't take clients, that she has a boyfriend, or she could just continue ghosting me. But she responded with anger and aggression. And for me, it was sort of indication that yes, her heart walls were coming down, and that she also definitely has some feelings that she doesn't understand how to work through, because there would be no anger and there would be no kind of that response if she didn't have any feelings. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And I felt hurt, of course, and I just wanted to clarify my intentions, but I was also just wanted to confirm to her that I won't write to her again, because I think that such kind of requests should be honored, and I should tell her that, right? So I wrote to her that I never had ill intentions, that I just experienced what I experienced, and this is my perception. If you're not there, that's okay. There's no big deal, and that I won't ever write to you again. But I feel this past life connection, and this is just how I am. She responded to that email with another aggressive email saying basically that I'm inventing all of these things, past lives are not real. She started to mocking my masculine dignity. She started to mocking my life and my love and my choices and all of that. And then she basically said that she started to threaten me, kind of like, if you ever write to me again, you'll like sort of experience pain, and that like never approach my temple space ever again. Sort of if I sort of find you close to me, like you'll get hurt, that kind of thing. That was just another level of quite bizarre I don't know even how to say that or how to explain what I was experiencing, because again, I wasn't coming from a place where I would be able to hurt her. And the most important part to understand is that I'm kind of like a shaman who works with white magic, right? And so I'll just accept that, and I'll move on, and I'll understand that she's coming from a place where she was hurt and abused in the past, and so she's kind of like questioning the intentions of men. That's why she's sort of this almost violent in return, right? Because she doesn't know what I want from her, sort of thing, and that I like sort of impeding into her personal space in this intrusive manner. But just imagine for a second if I was a shaman who would do like a black magic, or magician who do black magic, and such threats like could actually put her in danger. So it's just a kind of like a cautious warning for everyone who's like interacting with people like me, is that there's no point of abusing a shaman, because you don't know whether they're working for white or for black deities, and sort of they can do malicious things to your soul and to your energy body and just to your life. So there is no point of confronting or abusing magicians, because you don't know what you can sort of encounter. And the other thing is that I clearly presented my spiritual convictions and my visions and how I work, and that from our conversations, she should have known that I don't need to be physically present around her house if I actually wanted to hurt her. So, I mean, I didn't know how to process all of that, and I got into a really, really dark space, because not only like that, my feelings were sort of, I was told that I'm not allowed to have my feelings, right? Like this is something that quite common around Canada, is that people here often would do that. They would tell you that you're not allowed to have your experiences, that you're not allowed to have your opinion, that you're not allowed to have your spiritual perceptions, that you have to be certain way that they believe that you should be. And you kind of like, how you can tell another person who you love or how they should live their lives, it just still baffles me to this day, and I don't know how to understand that or how to accept that cultural part of this country. But this is something that people just random like easily do, and throw these kinds of words around and shame each other and judge each other all the time. And so I was just completely devastated at that time. And the other thing is that it was the second sex worker who I got in conflict with, and I never wanted that. I never wanted to be in conflict with them. I just wanted to sort of express my love in the ways that I could. And if they are not allowing me to express it physically or being romantically involved with them, I would be fine with that. Just the clear communication would be much better. And she basically created that situation where I texted her, where I emailed her. If she didn't open that door, it would never happen. So there were always two people in any conflict or any relationship and in any situation, and both are accountable. But it's not the perception of Canadians. They believe that they are always right and the others are always wrong. And so this is how they sort of interact. And again, to this day, I can't adapt to that part of the culture, because both people should be able to resolve any kind of situation or any kind of a connection. And we did have a relationship. So even if it was just this brief interaction, 2 sessions, it was never sort of closed. So, and there was no clear or respectful ending. That was another element of disrespect in that, the way that she handled it and the way that she responded to me. But at least on the bright side, we brought a lot of energies to the surface. And so over the next month, we kind of like did more ceremonies in Lighthouse Park and in Kitsilano, where we cleared these energies and kind of like had another series of rituals for Nataly, and she was able to return back into her body, which was kind of like a good thing, that I could at least sort of allow me to reconcile with my feelings. But at the same time, I still didn't know the purpose or the full essence of Nataly. And since she's kind of like she's represents Isis light, and it's the same thing, is that it's divided into 9 different Isis women, and Nataly was representing the ultraviolet spectrum of Isis light, which is like, say, in Yeshua or Mary Magdalene, it corresponds with death. In other deities, it also corresponds with death. But because both Isis and Osiris are kind of judges of death, or they exist between death and life. So in that, so they're more attuned to that frequency. So the death for them is not what death for all of us, for all others is. And so for them, it's kind of like the death for them is pain. So I can explain the purpose of the highest purpose or design of Nataly as Isis of pain. And I didn't know that at the time. It took me like around a year to kind of like fully understand that and to grasp that concept, and to kind of like reconcile that, oh yeah, she like, Christina's purpose in life is to provide people with valuable guidance and with tempering them through providing them pain. This is just who she is by natural design. And looking back into our 3 lives, it was always through pain that I was growing in this connection. It was not love, it was not sex, it was not nothing else. It was specifically pain that gave me the most growth in my connection with Nataly. And it was also interesting that most souls try to sort of ask forgiveness when they or their bodies hurt me. But Nataly, I never asked for forgiveness. She was like, I don't know, but I just don't feel it's right. And then when we discovered this purpose, that she has this frequency, I'm kind of like, oh, that's why you never asked for forgiveness, because you never did anything wrong. You have supposed to hurt me. But at that period of time, in the beginning of the 2023, I was not having that understanding, and there was a lot of like pain and frustration, unresolved feelings, and just like feeling very vulnerable. And I spent so much energy healing these two souls and other souls that I was completely drained, and I didn't know like what to do, and I was just exhausted. And there was a period of my life where I started to sort of like thinking about suicide, because I'm kind of like, I just can't continue. I can't continue living in the society where people interacting in this way, where they keep abusing each other for no reason, where they kind of like, where there is no love, where there is no like intimacy, when there is no friendships or anything like that. It's just like everybody's like dog eats dog mentality. And I was also like confused by everything that was going through, and the death journeys also kind of like wore me down. This entire story with Nataly wore me down, because it was such an intense 6 months that I like one of the most intense periods of my life. The way that it played, like everything that was sort of put into one space. And so that's where I found myself in, and I just tried to reconcile as much possible and like heal myself. But I did, in the beginning of the year, I did try to stay in death realm and just not return, because I didn't see the point of continuing. It was like so infuriating and frustrating that I was in this space, and like there was nothing, just like almost like running in circles all the time, and just like experiencing all of that. So it was a very strange period. And then also when we finished most of the work with Nataly, like the majority of it, of our rituals, she was just, by that time, she was just coming to my space to talk mainly, and just to sort of console me, I think, a little bit. It was the end of, it was the new year of 2023, and on the 30th of December of 2022, I went to do a ceremony with my friendly spirits of Stanley Park, my most empowering spirits. There are like a few places that I work with, and they're all kind of like different in nature and design and the purposes. But that place kind of, it's how it was related to me. It was always kind of a shared grounds where no tribe could live, and people would do like gatherings and potlucks and ceremonies there. Different tribes would connect in that place, so it was sort of neutral grounds of Stanley Park, if it makes sense, or neutral grounds of XII, the way that it was called originally. These spirits are the most friendly and the most kind of like good teachers. They are good teachers were always good teachers for me, and I just love their presence. And so I just needed some comfort at that time, but also just some guidance, because I was feeling very confused and troubled, and I didn't know what to do next in my life, and nothing sort of manifested, nothing empowering manifested. I was still in my day job, and I was just like running between the book and the practice and the job, and it was just sort of quite intense and exhausted. So I addressed the spirits, and I'm kind of like, I did all this work that was required of me. I healed Polly, I healed Nataly, I'm doing my book, we're gonna like sort of find a publisher, I'm sure of it soon. I finished the book by that time. I was just like sending it out to publishers at that period, so at least that part was sort of providing me with some hope. But I kind of told spirits that if I'm doing all this work for you, and I'm feeling drained and exhausted, maybe you can sort of reward me with some money, so I can purchase some rest, and just take the time for myself a little bit. And they kind of like they just laughed at me, and they kind of like, yeah, we definitely want to provide you with the reward for your work, because you were doing that out of pure passion, out of pure love, and you never wanted anything from anybody in return. You just was expressing your love in this way, and you just were kind of like honest with yourself, and you had your integrity, and you have your convictions, and you never betrayed them, and you did help these two incredible women on your path, and it was important thing to do both for them and for your growth. So we do want to reward you, but you're not gonna like our reward. And I asked what is it, and they said, we're gonna send you another unconditional love on your path as a thank you for that. And I was like, just almost just in complete disbelief. I'm kind of like, are you sort of joking me? I can't experience another love. I don't want to deal with any woman whatsoever at this point in my life. And then you keep telling me that I may potentially meet Jessica in the future. So I don't understand whether I should just wait for her, and like how I'm going to sort of be romantically involved with a woman, and what I can tell her, like that I'm waiting for this Jessica, or like what do I do, And so it was sort of this, but they kind of like, they still kept laughing, kind of like, no, you're gonna love this, and this is gonna be the love that would really uplift you and inspire you, and you would be really surprised with that woman. And they kind of they were quite sarcastic about it. I don't know, like there was something hidden in that, right? Like there was something that kind of like, oh, you're gonna love this surprise, like that kind of thing. And I just didn't like that energy, because it was sort of this they were hiding something from me, right? And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe the idea is the same, is that there's gonna be some short affair that would just inspire me and provide me with some energies to publish this book. And I also had to write a second novel for Sechelt Spirits by the rules of our contract. And so I hesitated, and I didn't really agree to welcome that new love. But they kind of like, oh, this is going to be in the future, so don't worry about it. You still have some time to kind of like process it and integrate it. But that's the thing, is that like you will have to open yourself up to that possibility. And they were, of course, referring to meeting of my twin flame Emilia that happened just 5 months later from that point. And I can attest for sure that that was what they were hiding, because they were hiding that she would be a sex worker as well, and they were hiding that I would be so much in love with her. Like that's why they smiled all the time. And when I actually met Emilia and I came back to them, they kind of like, so what do you think? Do you think that this is a good reward? Do you think that this woman is something that you can envision, somebody you can envision being next to you? And they were just like laughing at my feelings, because I came with this kind of just radiating heart, and I never experienced love like that ever before. It was the most intense and powerful love. It was almost like from another dimension, right? It was this kind of like we haven't seen each other for more than 2,000 years, and we had only one life together, and we were representing the same light. So I was seeing entirety of my reflection in Emilia, and I was completely swept away by her. And I, again, never experienced that love before, and to this day I'm still claiming that this is the love of my life, and this is just how this feeling feels, because I know that feeling from past lives. And every single life I occasionally did love more than one person, but it was always a single woman who would be sort of like the love of my life. And it's a very specific feeling that you have, and it's like you can't describe it. And of course it was also coming from our first life with Emilia together, where she was also a love of my life and I was hers. And so that's why I could recognize that feeling when it happened. And yeah, I'll continue to tell the story of this connection and how I met Emilia in the following episodes. And thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the future podcasts.